Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. Welcome to Your Brand Amplified. I am so thrilled to have Drew Glover on the show today. Drew, you have been in startup world, tech world, product, so many different areas of it for so long. And now, of course, you're founding partner of Fiat Growth and general partner at Fiat Ventures. What prompted you to get into this industry? Besides, I also saw you went to Berkeley, to Cal for your undergrad and your grad, so you're obviously in the zone and in the area. But I'd love to hear more about your background and what led you to finding and funding and creating this vision of how VC can be different.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. And, my background's a little different. I'd say it's pretty non-traditional. Grew up in the Bay Area, born and bred here, lived in New York for maybe a year in between after graduating college. But I went to UC Berkeley, and coming out of UC Berkeley, I was just a big proponent of, finding my path to really start my own venture. And I was lucky enough throughout my career, and I did a number of different things. I was in sales, I was in insurance, I was a cooking category manager at a food startup. I took a lot of pride in just trying a lot of different things. And I found my way into the fintech space. And my background, my family, very civic oriented, very much focused on impact as well as also just building like a really good life for yourself. And they didn't need to be mutually exclusive. And this was probably at my 7th or 8th job, but I started working for a company called Steady, helps folks in the 1099 world improve their financial health. Reconnected with a close friend of mine from Cal. He was at Chime, the large neobank, where he was doing a very similar role, where he was really overseeing marketing and growth and strategic partnerships. And we saw this huge opportunity on two sides. One is we realized that fintech was specifically an area where you could make the most impact on the world, positive impact. And also we saw it as a burgeoning space, both from the direct-to-consumer standpoint as well as the B2B standpoint as well. And so Alex Harris is my co-founder, we started co-advising a number of companies together. And while we still had our full-time jobs, we were working with all these different businesses that needed growth help, specifically in the fintech space, specifically that had theses that were focused on making a larger impact on the world, specifically the 80% of America that needed the most financial health and guidance and literacy. And we saw this opportunity in the space, specifically around driving growth services to these businesses. As you know, a couple of years ago, we were living in this very different economy. I always talk about it as the momentum economy, where it was growth by any means necessary. We were seeing multi-$100 million rounds, companies scaling up, becoming unicorns within 6 to 8 months. It was a crazy time. We were really focused on making it so these companies were scaling with cost-efficient strategies around growth marketing, around performance marketing, around affiliate partnerships. I could go down the list. And Alex and myself, through this process, we said, hey, let's start working with a number of these companies. What started out as 2 companies turned into 10, turned into 15. Long story short, we quit our day jobs. We founded Fiat Growth and was really one of the first growth consultancies specifically focused on the fintech space. Fintech has complicated products. It was our goal from a messaging perspective to make it simpler product and also to make it so we can scale these companies up. But through that, when we started Fiat Growth, we had one mandatory rule is every company we worked with, we would get the contractual right to invest in their next funding round. That was our foray into actually founding Fiat Ventures a couple years later, where we only worked with companies that we thought were investable. Mm-hmm. We only worked with companies that we really believed in and they had a thesis around, making an impact. And a couple years later, we had worked with around 80 companies. We had around 65 rights to invest in some of the coolest, sexiest companies in the market. And we went out and raised a venture fund, started raising in 2021, closed our first venture fund, a $25 million venture fund in 2022, brought on Marcos Fernandez, who was a longtime advisor to Fiat Growth, to be our managing partner. And so after closing that round, we realized we had really created this unique ecosystem in the venture space. We had Fiat Growth, our consultancy, that also doubled as a due diligence arm, because a lot of the companies we were investing in were companies that we worked with and had the right to invest in. And then we had Fiat Ventures, where we were able to actually invest in the companies that excited us the most. So today, Fiat Ventures, around 60% of our investments are companies that we previously worked with at Fiat Growth. And then the other 40% are companies that are just doing really incredible things in the space that we want to back with our dollars. So it's been a really fun journey, but I will say it's been a very untraditional path into venture. And I will also state, as a very proud African-American man, it has been one that I've been ultra proud of just because of the lack of diversity in the venture space and just really in tech in general.
100%. And that's one of the things I definitely wanted to touch on, because I've worked with a lot of startups. I've worked with some fintech startups, and I've seen how they've had to go through transition. I've worked with Black founded fintech startups as well, and seen the ecosystem and repositioning, or, okay, now we won this startup fund, but we have to move here to get this $1 million. And now we need to pivot a little bit on our strategy. And so I think what you do on the growth side is really important in the space in general, because I think that's not where a lot of founders probably are. Their mind is not necessarily at that. How do we use digital tools, affiliates, collaborations, advertising, all of those sectors to get visible, right? Whether it's B2B or B2C, but then also flagging the fact that minority entrepreneurs, and particularly in the VC world, it's such under 2% funding. So you really shot, all of those things. You're the poster child for here's what you can do and here's how you can have success. So I just have to, first of all, applaud that. And I'd love to hear how you decide what companies are worth working with. Yes, a lot of companies have a social good component. They have something they really want to change in the world, but not all of them know how to get there effectively. So is it that you see that they really are earnest, that you think it's achievable, and that the strategy side to help get them there?
Yeah, so the best part about our very unique model is, again, we get to work with a lot of these companies prior to investment.
Yeah.
And there's so many things you learn about the product, the business model, the founder dynamics, how they manage money, how they raise money, how they recruit talent. Do people believe in their vision and will, by any means necessary, kind of travel with them into the darkness of what the entrepreneurial journey is? And so, again, because we don't come from this traditional VC background, our story doesn't start by us working at Excel or Andreessen for 15 years prior to starting our fund. It actually comes from us being operators and being able to run our own diligence and underwrite deals based on us doing work with these founders in the trenches. So first and foremost, yes, the thesis of what they're building and the idea is very important to us. But once we love that, that's the easy part, because there's so many great ideas out there. Yeah. The hard part is getting in the trenches with these teams and these founders to understand if they're built to last. There's a level of doggedness and grit and relentlessness you need, especially in these early stage companies, to know that 90% of the time, the idea that we sought out to build and scale isn't the idea that becomes the billion-dollar business. These founders and these teams are having to tactfully pivot throughout their journey based on macro and micro market dynamics. Maybe there's something that happens from the regulatory standpoint that makes it so they have to change their business model. But there's all these things that we don't have control of that ultimately impact the end product that is the product that hits product market fit and scales to the moon. So, for us, we really lean on the Fiat Growth side of our business to help us underwrite opportunities. And, we're typically working with a company from 3, 6, sometimes even 12 months prior to investment. And coming out of that experience, we're working very closely with Fiat Ventures to bring all that qualitative and quantitative knowledge that we've gained from working with them to then make a really thoughtful decision around if we want to invest in them. I think a lot of misnomers is if you have a VC fund, you just have unlimited shots on goal. Just keep investing and one of them will hit. Out of a $25 million fund, we made the decisions, even as we were raising with our investors, we're doing 26, at most 27 investments, which means, whenever we make an investment, that's one less investment we get to make. So obviously, we probably talk to 2,000 companies a year. That's so like over the last 3 years that we've been deploying out of our fund, we have 27 winners that we get to choose.
Yeah.
And we lean on Fiat Growth to make it so we can de-risk that investment as much as possible.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what a daunting undertaking that is. Because everybody wants funding, everybody needs funding, and not everybody knows how to approach that either. If you don't have connections, right? You don't know how people will say, this is actually how you need to do a pitch deck. Or here are the people that you should really be going after when you're trying to start a business and you're running it. You don't necessarily have time to think about all those other things, even though they're really important. So I know that you work with a lot of partnerships, not just between your two companies, but having built up your companies with a partner, you worked with, other companies and I'd love to hear about partnerships and how important they are and how people can start to understand the ecosystem.
Yeah. So I think partnerships, they become so much more important than they were a couple of years ago. And that's been because of a pretty large shift in the type of businesses people are investing in today. A couple of years ago, I always explained it as call it consumer layer of tech, where we were investing a ton of money in consumer products. This is a money management tool. This is an investment tool, like a Robinhood or an Acorns or something like that. What we moved into now is this infrastructure investing, where people are investing a lot more into B2B businesses or B2B2C businesses. It might be an API that we're trying to sell into a large bank. It might be an investment tool that we're trying to sell into every single wealth manager in the world. But we're selling our business into other businesses. And what that means is instead of you having to go get 10, 20, a million users to prove out your product, what you need to do is you need to get like 5 to 10 really massive businesses you can sell it into. And as you know, like if you are a business and you get Microsoft as a client, then all of a sudden you could be seen as a multi-$100-million or even $1 billion business, where with a consumer product, you just need to get hundreds of thousands of users that are fully onboarded. So the business models have shifted here, but now in this B2B world, partnerships are so important, because if you get 2 or 3, 5 to 10, 10 to 20 meaningful partnerships, that changes the success of your business. That changes the outlook of your business. It also means your path to product market fit is that much quicker. It also means you can fundraise that much quicker. So now that we've seen this shift in the market, we're seeing the importance of partnerships and we're seeing the importance of sales. We're seeing this uptick in how people are building their teams and how they're building their infrastructure around their teams. Paid marketing and some of these other marketing strategies still remain wildly important. But in terms of being able to move the dial to success of your business, partnerships are playing a much larger role.
Yeah. And obviously that's something that you help organizations with when they come to Fiat Growth, and then if they make it into the venture side as well.
Yeah, that's right. Fiat Growth specifically, we are a full stack agency. Like we call ourselves a consultancy because we are both strategy as well as execution. But when it comes to this kind of full stack agency component, we're doing everything from affiliate partnerships, strategic partnerships. We're running all performance marketing that's across Meta and Instagram and Google and Reddit. I could go down the list. Lifecycle marketing. So again, someone might sign up for your app, but then they might never use it. Lifecycle marketing is really making it so we're not only retaining them as a user or a client, but we're also making it so they become product obsessed with whatever you built. We also have a creative arm of our business where we're doing all the ad creative, and then also standing up your MarTech stack. So data and analytics have become wildly important in marketing. Marketing has shifted from back in the day where, hey, great, we have a couple $1 million, let's go put commercials out on television. Now marketers are actually data scientists. It's the ones that can collect data in the most efficient way, analyze it in the most efficient way, and then actually drive strategy from that data. So when I say we build up your MarTech stack, that is bringing in platforms like Snowflake or HubSpot or Iterable or Amplitude, and being able to fully understand the customer journey, pull that data out to then put it back in the market as we deploy marketing dollars in the most effective ways.
And I've seen or I've heard that a lot of the VC funding right now is going towards AI companies. And of course, we know AI has been around a lot longer than everybody realizes, but since ChatGPT and OpenAI, that's really when it entered the zeitgeist, right? And this our conversation is coming at a very fortuitous time. I was just in DC last week with the Intuit Small Business Council speaking to Congress members about the need for small businesses all over to have access to AI tools to help streamline their MarTech stacks, their ad tech, their just general efficiencies. And we heard from Congress members that they've had a series of 9 focus groups where they brought experts in to talk about these issues. And so it's something you're aware of, but of course we know things move slowly and they might not completely understand the technology. But I'd love to hear what you're seeing on your side of things with AI and this new revolution, right? Of, okay, AI is in everything we do. Because I know Intuit is using it in a big way between MailChimp and QuickBooks and like the different ecosystems and how they figure out who is fundable or not as a company or who they can give loans to. And so I'd love to hear your perspective and what you're seeing on your side.
Yeah, I think there's some confusion around what an AI company is. I think a lot of folks are constantly saying, what's going to be the next AI company? I actually think a lot of the infrastructure, at least for the next 10 to 15 years here, has already been built.
Yeah.
There's the OpenAI. There's the OpenAI for government. There's the OpenAI for some of these like really large infrastructure players. Really where we're at now is how can we use these really large platforms to enable the products we already have? And so even what we're seeing in our own portfolio, we don't have a lot of quote unquote AI companies, but every single one of our companies has embedded AI into their existing infrastructure. That could be in a million different forms. It could be used for customer service, which we've seen companies like Klarna do, where, you know, they had 700 employees doing customer service, and now they're bringing in a number of different AI technologies to make it so that is a fully digitized AI-driven experience. Again, that doesn't mean Klarna is an AI company. It just means AI is enabling the efficiency of that business, especially as they look towards being a public company. So that's the biggest thing for me is I am most excited about investing in businesses that are utilizing AI as an unfair advantage versus trying to focus on building a competitor to ChatGPT or, you know, OpenAI. And so we're seeing this in a lot of different spaces in the fintech space. I think like obvious ones, we're seeing it in insurance. Like insurance has a wild amount of data. We're thinking about how do I underwrite life insurance? How do I underwrite car insurance? How can I do that in a more efficient way where you can just put in your first, last name and where you live, and that's enough information for them to spit back like the most competitive insurance prices. We're seeing it in customer service. We're seeing it in workflows where like, wouldn't it be great instead of you having to fill out that worksheet when you sit down at the DMV or when you sit down to, you know, go to the doctor, but you could just literally put in 2 or 3 pieces of information. And because of all the information they have, they can automatically fill everything out for you. Again, these are like very like rudimentary examples, but it's really helpful to hear of like, there's so many things that are manual processes that can quickly turn into instant processes just simply through AI. And it goes much deeper than that. But again, like AI within finance, within your day-to-day life, as long as every single company has the same amount of access to the infrastructure of AI, they can use it to enable a much more delightful experience for all their users and all their clients.
Yeah. And by creating those efficiencies, then the team members that you hire or that these companies you work with hire can be more on the strategy side of things and able to execute versus having to live in the world of the menial tasks that we hope AI can take over for us.
That's 100% right. That's 100% right. And again, what we're trying to do here, like in the simplest form, is we're trying to take what historically has been unstructured data and be able to structure that through enablement of AI, and then being able to turn that data into recommendations and insights for you. We want people to be less so administrators and more so overseers of knowledge. I think AI is really helping push the evolution of that in a really special way.
One of the things that you mentioned is the affiliate side, and we have partnerships, we have the affiliate ecosystem, and that's a place where obviously, yes, okay, there might be some AI influencers, but for the most part, that's still one-to-one recommendations. It's people who people trust to make these recommendations, or companies that they trust to make these recommendations to them. So I'd love to hear about the affiliate partnerships and why that's an important part of your ecosystem as well.
Well, affiliate partnerships is very much, I think, one of the most cost-efficient channels to stand up. It's also one of the most underutilized one. And so the reason why it's so cost efficient is if you're spending money from a paid performance perspective, you need to spend money to test the market to understand how to make money. With affiliate partnerships, we can get really tactical in terms of the different partners that we want to forge a relationship with. And we can get tactical with the specific audience or personas that company finds most valuable to them. A good example being like Airbnb. Airbnb wants to get in front of people that are maybe looking for a different experience when it comes to travel. We're also looking to get in front of people that have enough income to actually go travel. So as I keep going down the list here, maybe there's a certain age, right? People in their early 30s to early 40s are the ones looking to travel. What you hear me doing is I'm building a specific persona of the type of user that Airbnb wants to get in front of. Once I get that persona, at that point, as an affiliate marketer, I have the ability to go look at the entire digital landscape and go see the different type of publishers or websites that fit that persona. Maybe I go to Travel and Leisure because that is a publication, an online publication specifically around people that want to travel. Like that perfectly fits the persona that I'm trying to sell to. I can go to Travel and Leisure and I can say, listen, Airbnb is willing to spend $50 for anybody that signs up on their website. We would love to build a relationship where you write about Airbnb often. and we are able to build an affiliate relationship where every single time someone follows a link on Travel and Leisure, comes to Airbnb and signs up with that link, we'll pay you $50. Again, the best part of that is Travel and Leisure says yes, but we're only going to pay you if someone comes to that site. Yeah. And so that brand is able to pinpoint the event that is most valuable to them, being signing up on Airbnb, and only pay out when that event is triggered by a user. Where a lot of these other marketing channels, again, you're having to pay up front. So it's a great channel to stand up, but it's also one of the more efficient ones. And every single brand should be diversifying their channel mix. You should be spending money on Facebook. You should be spending money on Google and Instagram. But the ultimate goal is how do we make it so we can stand up 4 or 5 different channels over the span of a couple years, and all of them are optimized and all of them are scaled up. The biggest fear for any brand is if you're only spending money on Facebook, that's the only channel that works, and Facebook shuts down tomorrow, that means the business shuts down. So we have to be really thoughtful and strategic in terms of how we stand up growth.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a very big believer in peso and integrated marketing strategies. I tell this to my students at UC all the time. If all of your social media went away, if you don't have everybody captured who is a potential customer, you don't have their email address, they haven't gone to your website, then you lose all of that data and that information. Going back to what you were saying about data, we live in a society where we needed the storytelling, we need the authenticity and the human touch, but we also need all of this great data so we can marry them together to find the best match.
That's right.
And I love that you mentioned a magazine partnership, because we know that most of these publications now need these affiliate models to survive because they're not getting as much straight ad revenue as they used to be. So it's a win-win.
100%.
Yeah. Do you also partner with content creators, influencers, people like that? Or are you primarily sticking to the big guns?
So we do. A lot of the content creators we partner with are specifically for user-generated content. One of the big trends that we've seen over the last couple of years here is it's much more effective when you see an ad from an influencer or someone that you might follow on a social media platform telling you that this product is much more exciting. So there's 2 different sides here. One is just like pure influencer marketing, where I reach out to an influencer, say, I'll pay you X amount of dollars to do a post. There's another one where I say, hey, I actually want you to be the talent in my commercial, and I want that commercial to look and feel like you were doing an influencer review. And that becomes the long tail marketing strategy for the business. So we'll do a little bit of both. Sometimes we will simply forge those relationships with an influencer and just pay them up front for like a sponsored post. But other times we'll actually say, hey, here is the content that we want to put forth for this brand, and we want your sponsored post to double as the actual ad that we're going to push across multiple platforms. Because we are seeing that organic look of someone speaking directly into camera, confidently, truly believing in your product is the most effective way to specifically sell like direct to consumer products. Sometimes B2B as well. If you have like a CFO selling ERP software, you want that individual talking directly to you about why that's the best product for you to use.
Yeah, it's interesting how that landscape has changed from professionally produced content that looks very professional and in studio to now going back to that authenticity, that genuineness. So I'd love to hear, if you don't mind sharing, a favorite Fiat Growth project and strategy. And then I know this is like choosing one of your favorite children, but a company on Fiat Ventures side that you invested in that you've seen really surpass your expectations even.
Yeah, that's not too hard of a question, actually. One of the ones at Fiat Growth that we're always just super proud of is a company called Sunday Home Buyers. It is a real estate company where it's kind of like the model of we buy your ugly home and then it. So, they kind of cut out realtor commissions and they will purchase your home and then they'll put some money into it and then basically resell it at, call it like 5 to at the most 10% on the flip. But we basically took over their marketing and we had to find these very competitive ways of marketing them across the country, specifically on top of some of like the largest real estate companies and individual realtors. And so we tried a million different things. And again, marketing is a game of test and iterate. And it's also running cheap tests. So we can do a lot to figure out what works the best. And through a number of different tests and iterations, we landed on this strategy where we would go to individual cities and we would see who the top real estate agents were in those cities. And we'd actually put money behind that real estate agent's name.
Oh.
So like if you were one of the best realtors in Oakland, California, we'd say, great, let's actually put money behind your name as the keyword and make it so if anyone looked you up, we'd actually see Sunday pop up right above you.
Really? Wow.
And it turned out to be an incredible acquisition strategy because it was also a literacy tool where a lot of these folks were quickly realizing that you could sell your house for less because we were bypassing a lot of the real estate fees. And also we were paying in cash. So that was very enticing, specifically as we are in the middle. I always call it age tech, but like this wealth transition where a lot of 65 plusers are looking to sell their home. And the main thing they need is liquidity. So anybody that's willing to sell in cash and also make it so it's a much more affordable process is the most exciting opportunity for them. So, Sunday's a Series D company now, but we were working with them when they were Series A. And, that strategy alone was one of those, I hate using this term, but I'll use it, a growth hack that really propelled them to like exponential scale, which was really exciting. One of the other companies that we worked with, actually, they remain nameless, but they are a financial OS platform. So an operating system for a number of different industries. But one thing that's really interesting is that LinkedIn has actually become a really large growth platform for a lot of, especially early stage founders, where if you're a B2B business and you are able to situate yourself as a thought leader in the space, then you'll actually turn your LinkedIn profile and your LinkedIn exposure into a huge lead magnet for you. So we actually worked with one of those founders to actually just build out their entire profile and write a ton of LinkedIn content for them. And we did a couple posts a week and we get on the phone with that individual every single week for 30 minutes, ask them a slew of questions about themselves, their business, what makes their business special. We turn those into posts and we post them. And what that would do is all of a sudden, this person was getting inbound on LinkedIn saying, I love what you're building. This is super interesting. I think this company needs it. I think that company needs it. And so I think constantly we're seeing these different platforms pop up that you wouldn't think are a actual lead magnet, but are turning into one of those growth channels that you can't really deny.
Yeah.
And so that was, again, like Sunday's a large company, but the people that need the most help a lot of times are these really early stage pre-seed seed companies that need to project themselves as bigger than they are, project the problem that they're solving are as big as they actually are, but their team is only a couple people and it's founder-led sales. So those ways to make them feel and look bigger and be thought leaders in the space become a really important piece of their general growth over time.
And that is such a better strategy than getting cold DMs, maybe from an AI chatbot in your LinkedIn profile. with somebody who says they want to add value and then they just spam you with what they want to sell you in the next email. I love that you're doing that and using that approach to really build actual thought leadership and to really show who this person is. I get great things coming to me from LinkedIn in terms of like invitations to, I got an invitation to go to an AI conference in August. And then now I'm like, okay, let me see if I can speak at it, right? So really, really cool, fun things and based on my words or what I'm posting. And that's what I want, those things. And that's exactly what you're doing in that ecosystem that you're creating. So kudos.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think LinkedIn is wildly underutilized in the world. And I think
misused.
the ghostwriting market is going to be one to look out for. There's going to be a lot of people. We've all felt it, right? Like no matter how good of a writer you are, it's very nerve-wracking to write about yourself and write about what you're building and like publish it. And so there's an opportunity for businesses to exist to get people over that barrier where they can one day do it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the generational divide in terms of, you talked about how there's this generation that's, looking at other homes and maybe they're ready to move on. And we know there's going to be a big wealth transfer. We also have Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like all these younger generations that have used technology. I mean, I'm Gen X, so I definitely grew up in a very different time of technology and had to adapt because this is what I do for a living. And it's been fantastic. But how do you differentiate when you're looking at your various company portfolio, which ones you want to market to which generations and how you disseminate the marketing?
That's one of the things I love most about the VC side of the business is I get front row exposure to where money and people's relationship with money is.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you a couple things. One is he's getting younger. Kids are getting exposure to money at a very early age now, and it's forcing them to learn about money. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a huge opportunity to really hone in on what's most important about money, which is earning, saving, and investing, and setting yourself up for at least knowing how to build generational wealth over time.
Yeah.
So I think there's a huge opportunity in the fintech space, specifically around financial literacy, financial health, and making sure that when folks have money, they actually understand what to do with it. And we're seeing that as early as literally like the age of like 8 or 9. Now, they're getting money from their parents. They're getting their allowance money in digital forms, and there's ways for them to manage that. I also think because of this wealth transfer, and we're seeing reports of 15,000 people a day retiring now, there's this new wave. And again, like the boomers have, over 30% of the world's wealth right now. And there's a huge opportunity to help them build a new relationship with how they want to engage with money post-retirement. If that's something as simple as like trust and wills and making sure that those are like fully built, all the way over to properly managing their money to do the things that they want to do post-retirement. And also as they want to set up a nest egg for the next generation of their families and doing that in a way that is as thoughtful, as efficient as they want it to be. So I see huge opportunities on both sides of the world, right? The earliest stages, the latest of stages, and currently spending a lot of time talking to a lot of companies that are building to solve for both challenges.
Yeah. Well, we know that digital literacy is an issue, financial literacy, or whatever vernacular you want to use. Some people don't like that word attached, but it's so important, as you talked about earlier, to change the dynamic and create. I teach grad school at USC, but I do still have a lot of students who are first generation. And it's really beautiful to see that they get to achieve this dream. But I also know how expensive it is to go to university, right? And I don't know that they're all getting the financial education they need to make the right decisions. I know I certainly am always learning. So I'm interested to hear about that, because I think that's even a different dynamic, is what if somebody lives in an area where there's not only food desert, but there's not good Wi-Fi, right? How do they access these tools if they don't have a school district that's going to teach them? So I'm hoping that some of the systems that you're working in are going to help solve for some of this, because those are the people who really, really need it and need to understand that they can get out of whatever situation generationally they're in and be the change makers, right? But they have to have this foundation, if you're talking about starting when they're 6, 7, 8 years old.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think the future of work is getting younger as well. Folks are finding ways to earn money at a much younger age. Huge believer that earning money and managing money, products need to collide at that intersection. to me, I think it's very unfair to go tell a ton of people that we're going to help you manage money, especially if you're the 80% of America that doesn't have $500 in savings in case of an emergency.
Right.
So the lead always is like, we want to help you earn money so we can help you manage money.
Nice.
And a lot of the businesses that we try to work with, if that is not their core focus, we need to know that it's very much on the near-term product roadmap to make it so that there is a collision in between managing and earning. I think saving and investing is a part of that. That to me is like the quad that's most important here. Earning, managing, saving, investing. And unless you're solving, there could be a lead in your product that's bringing people through the funnel, but you need to be solving for all of that to make it so even the most at-risk populations are leaning into engaging with your products. Because keep in mind, the majority of like money management tools are free. They're direct-to-consumer apps. Their goal isn't to monetize on the user coming in. It's to monetize on the user over time. The hope is for any bank, a checking and savings account is a loss leader for them. You buying your first house with them is what they're spending all their time and effort in building the relationship. So the good thing is like the digital bank and like the digital, like the financial infrastructure that's being built online is they're very much following that path of we want to invest heavily in building the relationship so we can get some of these larger opportunities later on to build a really profitable business. The big difference is checking and savings is not financial literacy. What needs to be built up front is a very different type of onboarding process for the first 10 years of the relationship. And that is what is changing quite a bit here. And also, I think by a lot of these products building for younger ages, call it teens or even earlier than teens, they're being forced to drive people into their product in different ways. And a lot of times that is the literacy component. A great example being is like all these things keep happening in the crypto markets. And I don't care how old you are, you've heard about crypto.
Right.
And an uninformed person playing around in the crypto markets is a very dangerous person. And so we're constantly trying to make it so like even the things that might seem like it's adult content from a financial standpoint, we have to remember that the youth today is highly educated and highly exposed and has access to information at the tip of their fingers. And so we are starting to treat some of these younger kids like adults, but we're giving them the messaging of that content that matches the age that they are. So, sorry, to go back to your question though, yes, we are focused on working with products that are touching the things that these kids need the most, but also making sure that we're building the infrastructure that will keep them inside of that ecosystem as long as possible.
Yeah. This is one of my areas that I'm very passionate about. So I can talk to you probably all day and just keep asking you questions. But I know that we're almost at the end of our time. I wanted to find out about building your team because you do on the growth side, there aren't a lot of agencies that do everything like you do, right? So what was the intentionality behind being full service and also figuring out who the right team members are to play in this field with you?
Yeah. So first, we say full stack, we say full service. There's many services that we don't offer that sometimes our clients need. And so we do have a really great partnership ecosystem where we're constantly passing them over to the right expert. But we do a lot. And that was not something that we did from day one. My co-founder and I, we started this business as an affiliate partnership business. That changed it to strategic partnerships. Those were our superpowers. But we oversaw in previous lives full marketing teams of very large businesses. And so over time, as we kept having clients asking us for different services, we would basically just start hiring the folks that we wish we could have hired in-house once upon a time. So what we have today is we have a team just over 30 people that are comprised of some of the most like senior execution first marketers that we had in our network. And that was something that we did on a piece by piece basis because we consistently as marketers, we try to do this all the time as well with our clients, is we let the market tell us what they need. And so when we would get an overwhelming amount of, hey, I wish you guys did this, I wish you did this, over the span of a couple quarters, we'd look at each other and say, we got to go make this higher and we got to build out this service because our clients need it. And it's always better when you're able to offer a one-stop shop with really incredible service than you kind of having to piecemeal together your team of experts. Because coming back to the data point is you want one team overseeing the data and translating that data into action.
Yeah.
You start to lose some of your edge when one team's owning the data and then dispersing that out to people, because we all look at data differently, some people better than others. So from our perspective, we have always wanted to build a team of the best experts and specialists that have access to a core piece of data for our client. And then we can all work together and collaborate on how to best turn those insights into action within our marketing strategies.
I think that is what everybody should be doing. And hopefully that is the world we will see. One of my last questions for you is, what advice would you have for somebody who is looking to enter the world of startup, and particularly with the fintech area that you're an expert in?
Yeah. First, I'll tell you this. 3-4 years ago, when the market was as frothy as it was, I saw a lot of people entering the world that just thought it was the quickest path to wealth. That was a moment in time. That has never been the entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
The entrepreneurial journey is one where you need to be impassioned, you need to be excited, you need to be a genuinely nice person, but you also need to be dogged and relentless and never give up.
Yeah.
And so I would just quickly say, like, you just need to be built to fail a lot, fail fast, learn fast, always get up, and just keep grinding. And I'm really happy to see, like, in this new market we're seeing, I'm seeing a lot of founders like that.
Nice.
Some of them are second time, some of them are third time, a lot of them are first time as well. But they're entering it being like, I'm ready to sit down in the seat for the next 15 years and see this thing through a potential IPO or whatever their ultimate goal is. And then I would also just state that you really need to be able to do a couple things. You need to be able to recruit a really incredible team and make it so your vision is something that people want to follow. You need to make sure that you can sell. You need to be able to sell the product that you're building. The early days, like you getting to product market fit, you getting your business to a really good place, like you're going to need to get those first 5, 10, 15 customers or whatever, 1,000 users. Last but not least, I will say this to anyone starting a business. Decide right now if you want to build $1 billion business, which is great. That's a venture-backed business. Or if you want to build a business that is just really successful, it doesn't need to be $1 billion business.
Right.
Both are great businesses. You owning a business that's doing $20 million a year, that is not venture-backed, that is bootstrapped, you are a multi.
Exactly.
You raising venture funds and trying to become $1 billion business, you're going to operate on a deficit for the next 10 years. You're going to have a lot of people on your board telling you to do different things. You're going to have to manage that board. You're going to have hundreds of people in your company, and you're going to scale up, and you're ultimately going to need to become a CEO of a massive business. Both are very exciting journeys, but ask yourself that question and commit to, at least like the early stages, commit to what you want to do, because it will significantly change how you view the growth and scale of your business. It'll be very helpful to you to understand what the North Star you're following is.
That's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Love that. And we're sending people to Fiat Growth to find out more about how they can work with you. I know that you have specific avatars of people that you like to work with. You've talked about a few things, but is there anything else that you'd like to mention that before somebody takes that leap?
Yeah, I guess a couple things. One is Fiat Growth is a couple things. One is Fiat Growth, our core services. Keep in mind, like, we're typically working with companies at Fiat Growth that are really ready to get prepared to scale. So that's typically like a seed company or a Series A company that's really looking to take it to the next level. But we work with pre-seed and seed companies, even idea stage businesses as well. But we do that a lot of time through Fiat advisors. And so we have a little over 200 advisors that we work closely with. A lot of them have full-time jobs, but they're looking for ways to do, like, call it like side gigs that are specific to their area of expertise. And we connect those folks to really early stage founders. It's also a very affordable path for you to be able to get the strategy and execution help that you need. So regardless of your size, please reach out to us if you're interested in learning anything about growth or looking to scale your business up in a meaningful way.
And Drew, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, family motto, some words that help you stay excited about every day?
Yes, I do. One of my favorite quotes that I heard recently is, if you don't like the life you've created, create a new one.
It's powerful.
Everyone has the power and the ability to create their life, the life they live in, and you have the ability to curate your own world. And so just because you're not happy with something doesn't mean you have to live in it. You just simply have to create something new.
It might be one little step at a time, but you could do it. Drew, this has been a really fun, engaging, and informational conversation. So I really appreciate your time. I know that the audience does as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I'll be back again with another amazing guest shortly to distill their information that will help you be better at life, at business, at everything that we are trying to do in this crazy world. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.